Hi, my name is Sarah Grendon. I'm 17. At this point in my life, I should have a bright future to look forward to. But the education that this state has provided me with makes it crystal clear that my generation does not have a bright future to look forward to if we don't take action on climate change now. And that is now, in this decade. What that looks like is keeping it in the ground. So I'm asking you for a moratorium on oil projects in Washington state, because you don't want to look at your children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews 2 decades from now and have them ask you, what did you do? Dad, mom, uncle, grandma, what did you do to prevent this from happening? And not be able to say that you did something. And so something looks like taking your position as people of power and people in the government, people in the city council, to create a moratorium on oil, on coal, to prevent it from going through this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Here, Rashad, since we're together, we give 4 minutes.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Today we are addressing the problem of oil trains coming through our city, and we are doing that in a song. Please don't send exploding trains through our city. We don't think that people dying is pretty. So let us be not the first but the many to tell you how we feel. We're sick of your money, we're sick of your game. You put lots and lots of people in lots and lots of pain. You put their lives on the line for your profit, that's a crime, and we don't think that that's fair. Please don't send exploding trains through our cities. We don't think that people dying is pretty. Think about the future generations. Think about the lives they live. Think about our children's 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 children. Think about the future generations. Think about the lives they live. Think about our children's children's children. What to them do you give? What to them do you give? Mad air. What to them do you give? Dead whales. What to them do you give? The Keystone Pipeline. What to them do you give? Destroyed ecosystems. What to them do you give? What to them do you give? Exploding trains. Thank you. Thank you.
Mandy, I'm sorry, but you're next.
I know. It's going to be hard to talk while I'm crying.
This is like, Mandy's going to be followed by Adam Gaia and then Lynn Fitzhugh.
I just want to say real briefly, thanks for having us. And we're all familiar with the 47 people who died in the recent coal train explosion and how many hundreds of others were killed. We can't let that happen here. And if it does, can you live with that? Because I can't. So we shouldn't even consider it, and we should just be an example for the rest of the country and not allow the coal trains.
Thank you, Mandy. Adam?
My name is Adam Gaia. I live in the Beacon Hill neighborhood. I'm going to try and be brief. I also have some written testimony on behalf of 350 Seattle. So I live on the north side of Beacon Hill, which is a really lucky place to be because every night I get to go to bed looking out my window to a really gorgeous view of downtown Seattle. And every morning when it's really clear and nice, I get to see CenturyLink Field lit up with Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains behind it. I've been working on the issue of oil trains for about 6 months now, and over that period watching videos of the disasters in Lac Mégantic and in Castleton, North Dakota, and the disaster that was just averted about a month ago in Philadelphia, it's made me realize that I could potentially be waking up to a front row seat in one of the biggest tragedies we've seen if something were to happen here in downtown Seattle, and that's what really motivates me around this issue. I first just want to thank the Council for addressing the issue and taking strong action that we can to update our incident response plan, to encourage state legislation. Those are all really important common sense first steps, and I really appreciate that that action has been taken already. But I think that no one in this room wants to see a very well studied oil train explosion. So the key here in the specter that we have to look at is that there are 9 proposed projects bringing dramatic increase in the trains across our state and here in Seattle. And the state regulators have continued to permit these projects even though we don't have full studies on the cumulative impacts and full studies on the safety impacts on our town. So that's why it's really important. It's included in our written testimony some language that we're proposing to please include an ask to state agencies, particularly Governor Inslee, Lands Commissioner Peter Goldmark, and the Department of Ecology to have placed a moratorium on new oil train projects, so new terminals, until the full cumulative impacts can be studied. We also have some language about climate change and the potential of bringing tar sands in these trains to our city as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Lynn's going to be followed by Mike Dash, and then Lori Rostow-Eider, I think. Go ahead, Lynn.
When the federal rules were made that govern what is transported on rail, no one could imagine Beck and Shell. No one could imagine the gases that are explosive and the other chemicals that have been added that make it so volatile. And the oil companies knew that when they decided that they wanted to ship this. They didn't ask anybody, is this a good idea? Is this okay? Is this safe? They just did it. And in doing that, they're showing us where we stand with them on climate change. It's their profit, and the rest of us be damned. You know, quite sincerely, I would not want to be in your shoes the day after one of these trains blows up next to CenturyLink Field with 71,000 people in it, or in the tunnel underneath the downtown core, creating a 9/11 type situation. And I know you're concerned about it. Every public official I've seen looks horrified when they hear about this. And there's a sort of looking around the room like, where's the adult in the room who's going to take care of this? And so I'm looking at you guys as the adults in the room that are going to take care of this. For me, it's way beyond just the possibility of this exploding. The carbon that they can release can so greatly exasperate the situation that we're dealing with climate change. We're well on our way right now to killing marine life in the oceans. 20% of the human population eats out of the ocean. So that kind of makes the 71,000 look like peanuts. So I'm looking for you guys to find the strongest possible language in the resolution that you can. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Mike?
My name is Mike Dash. I've lived in the University District for 50 years, and I'm a small business owner in Seattle. And 2 things concern me about the trains, as we've been talking about today already: the possibility of an explosion, knowing that 47 people in a town of only 6,000 were killed by an oil train explosion makes the possibility of a train explosion in Seattle absolutely horrifying. That's an immediate kind of local impact that we might be seeing from oil trains. There's also the climate impact. We're already dealing with a pretty disrupted climate. It's already bad enough. And the possibility of that climate getting worse and what it might do to us and what it might do to the rest of the world is also quite frightening. I want to say a question that you're going to be asked and a lot of other people are going to be presented with is, but what about the business value of the trains and shipments? And I think the answer to that is it's a hugely complicated question. We know the risks are really great. We know that the questions that are going to be raised about the business value are also going to be great. And the way that we have to come to that is with a statewide moratorium that gives us time to really fully understand all of the questions and all of the impacts. So thank you for the resolution, and please press for a statewide moratorium.
Thank you, Mike. Lori's going to be followed by Johan Hellman and then Linda Massey.
And Lori's really the Seattle Raging Grannies. Now, our mission is to present issues with humor so that people can hear them, but the reality is there is nothing humorous about these oil trains coming through our city. Thank you. Okay. Seattle's our home, and we don't want it blown up by trains carrying volatile oil. The tanks are so old, they can easily explode. We've seen how they kill and they maim. Keep those trains far from us, or better yet, don't let them muss our climate up more. Let's show them the door. Keep the oil in the ground evermore. How can we let greed so easily impede our right to a climate that's clean? The future looks bleak unless we can keep fossil fuels down where they belong. Keep those trains far from us, or better yet, don't let them muss our climate up more. Let's show them the door. Keep the oil in the ground evermore. The statement you make must be strong, not opaque. Say clearly we fear for our lives in the present and then for our kids and their kin. Keep all that oil in the ground. Keep it in the ground.
My name is Rodney Harold, and I'm a resident of Mount Baker community. I wish I had a voice like these kids and the Raging Grannies, but I resorted to writing my comments down. This is really an important issue for me, and so I'll go with this. So I live in Mount Baker. My dad was born in Seattle in 1903, 111 years ago, and retired in 1964 after 40 years of service as a senior engineer for the Seattle Water Department. That's what it was called back in those days, before the public utilities. I remember him saying during the 50s that the Tolt River Watershed Dam and Pipeline, which were all constructed under his watch, would serve Seattle and the surrounding area for 30 years into the 90s. I believe he was thinking sustainably. I am here to ask you to act today in the interest of maintaining Seattle's sustainability into the future as it becomes more threatened the longer we as a society refuse to acknowledge global warming and fail to act in a timely manner. I plead that you insist on a moratorium for any additional shipment of fossil fuels through Seattle to foreign markets. Our nation's lust for oil and corporations' resolve to cash in on America's desire to become energy self-efficient and tap every fossil fuel source they can exploit while they can are forcing myself and thousands more to act to protect Mother Earth and prevent the horrific catastrophe we are on the brink of. I have pledged to risk arrest in Seattle over the KXL tar sands pipeline. It looks like those arrests will be happening by early May if the U.S. State Department and President Obama allow the northern section of the pipeline to move forward. Do your part by acting now to arrest greed. Do not wait until it's too late.
Mr. Rick, Rodney. Kimberly? Kimberly's going to be followed by Rick Harlan and then Joe Ritzman.
Hi, my name is Kimberly LaDuca. I'm a licensed attorney in Washington. I recently graduated from Lewis and Clark Law School with a certificate in environmental and natural resource law. And one of the reasons I moved to Seattle was because of its environmental reputation, and also because of the access to the beaches along Puget Sound. I live in the Ballard area, and the reason I moved there was for Golden Garden Park and also Carr Creek. With the expansion of oil by rail from 3 trains per week to 3 trains per day, I am scared of how that will impact the recreational activities at these 2 beaches. I commend the City Council for taking the effort and first stand in making this resolution, and it's a great start, but it absolutely needs to include the consideration and language on climate change. Having more oil by rail will mean more CO2 in the atmosphere, and considering that we are already way beyond the recommended 350 parts per billion in the atmosphere, we absolutely need to consider this. And it's not just a moral issue. By state law, under the State Environmental Policy Act, any major action that significantly affects the quality of the environment needs to prepare an environmental impact statement. And we know that this is going to impact the environment. So we need to be considering climate change and also the greater environmental impact of all of these proposals and of the 9 proposed terminals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rick Harlan, Central Area, and this is Gene Darcy.
Council members, I live in a neighborhood in North Seattle adjacent to the very tracks that now carry and project to carry even more crude oil from the Bakken oil fields and potentially from the Canadian tar sands. I and my neighbors do not want these petroleum products transported past our houses. The reasons are obvious. You know about the disasters that have already occurred, could still occur. That said, localized explosions and local pollution are not the bottom line for me. The major problem I have with shipping fossil fuels to be burned either in the U.S. or in other countries is the impact they have on climate change and ocean acidification. The local impacts might possibly be mitigated, however, the global impacts cannot. You must stop this. Thank you.
Seattle's on a planet. The planet has a problem. We have a problem. We have a problem. We need to solve it, get involved and do it now, now, now. We need to build that better future, and we need to start right now. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build that better future, and we need to start right now. We need to start right now and right here. Let's do it.
Thanks, Rick.
Isaac. I'm from Queen Anne, and I'd like to speak to the gentleman who was from 30154 and tried to allay our fears with what they have recently done. My fears are not allayed. This long train going through Seattle, Tacoma, whatever, has a lot of spots where sabotage can occur. We haven't secured our borders. We can hardly secure a train going through 3 times a day or once a week or once a day. I don't know how many times. If that train is, who knows, maybe an Amazon drone is going to malfunction one day and take us out. We don't know. With that, I want you to hear about some of the scenarios that can happen. One is if that train goes down around our sewage treatment plant. December 2007, that plant almost went down permanently. It took them 8 hours to bring it back. If we have a scenario like that, you're going to have to tell Seattle they can't flush their toilets for a couple of weeks. I don't think anybody's going to come here after that. So please help us out.
Thank you, Carol. And Richard?
Thank you for allowing this public comment. I'm not a public speaker, so pull for me here. I come from a faith-based community here in Seattle, and we have a healing prayer that we give. Two of those lines in that prayer are, "Give us the courage to make our lives a blessing." And I look around the room here, and I'm seeing these two young gentlemen step forward with courage. I'm seeing that down in Olympia, Representative Farrell has put together a bill down there, and it's House Bill 2347. It passed the House floor. It deals with this issue. I started out doing civil disobedience when I was 19 in Washington, D.C. I went to jail with Coretta Scott King, Ralph Abernathy, Andrew Young, all of these folks. I've gone through the training now, and I'm putting my body on the line for the XL pipeline, and now I learned as of yesterday, I'll be doing that also for the oil trains. I would encourage you to get a hold of your state senator with that bill down in Olympia. They can address the House bill even though they didn't pass it on the Senate floor, and they can bring that forward. So I just want to thank you folks here, and I'm looking for your courage along with our courage that we can do something that affects all of our futures here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for comment. Again, those I haven't got to will have an opportunity at the end of the presentations to comment if you choose to stick around. So why don't I go ahead, folks, again, we'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for staying late. I wanted to tie together something that Lynn Fitzhugh said and also something that Eric DePlace said in a slightly different perspective. And Lynn mentioned the idea of the grown-ups in the room and who the grown-ups in the room are. And I think one thing we have to focus on is that we know for certain that those grown-ups are not the fossil fuel companies. These are the same companies that took the oil that they knew very well was the most volatile oil that we know of, and put it in tanker cars that have been deemed inadequate by the federal government for over 20 years, and then started sending these tanker cars full of this volatile oil through major cities all over the country. And one thing they've been very good at historically is privatizing profit and socializing risk. And so whether it's the risk of spills or the risk of climate change, they manage to externalize all the problems and all of their costs. And as Eric pointed out, it's very clearly their goal to take all of the fossil fuels that are in the American West and Midwest and move them through us to Asia. And that's exactly what's going to happen if we let them do that. And if we have, if we don't take a strong stand, such as with the statewide moratorium, we can't sort of take this piecemeal and keep fighting it whack-a-mole. We have to make it really clear that we're going to have very strong standards around both safety and environmental issues, because they will overrun us, if we let them, and they will turn, the beautiful Northwest into a fossil fuel highway. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Vivian? Is there Vivian here? Okay, if I have that name wrong, come up at the end. Olivia?
She left.
Okay, Olivia? And Olivia's going to be followed by John Beto and then Shauna Smith.
Hi, Mike, I'd like to thank you for staying later to hear our comments. I'm Olivia One Feather. I live in Kent, Covington area, actually, and I live about a half a mile from the tracks. And honestly, I heard that the train increase has been about 3 times more than it has been in the last week. So something is going on. I can hear it. The horses get upset when the trains continually to come through. So if this were to happen on any of the tracks coming through Auburn, coal sits in Auburn. I see it all the time. The oil and coal sit down there, right across from Boeing. So it's affecting the whole region in reality. And I'm coming here as a Standing Rock Sioux Tribal member to talk to you, to ask you. This is directly related to the Keystone Pipeline. It's directly related to the coal exports. It's just compartmentalized like everybody likes to do it in this whole little system that goes around. And I just wanted to ask you to please do your part, and I see that you are, to stop these coal trains, because that oil that they are proposing is going to go straight through our territory. And every band of Lakota has said that we want to stop the Keystone Pipeline. So this will be a good starting point. If you stop it here, then we can stop it all the way back. So this is a good thing, and I want to thank you for that. I also did 15 years in the international transportation industry. I've done imports, exports, all of it. So safety regulations, there's very few hazmat people. Since 9/11, the pay scale has decreased. You have departmentalized and taken responsibilities away from how we conduct business as international transportation agencies, and it creates a huge gap in the safety and the regulations of what you're doing. I've made things up and sent them to consulates, and they've gone through. This is the world that we live in. And this is the international transportation that you're talking about. BNSF's SSA Marine, Terminal 18, he sat here and talked about it. They are the worst for breaking equipment. They don't refund anything. I mean, the people that come here to talk to you, you need to look at their track record. And I can sit here and stand to tell you, 15 years I've watched this happen. I've lost my job now due to the coal trains, and that is fine, but now I have time to come and speak to you. So thank you for that, and I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, Olivia.
When oil trains start exploding all over the country, it's a pretty incredible opportunity to stop and look at what we're doing. And I want to thank you for doing that and showing real leadership. As we mark the 50th anniversary of the Surgeon General's report on cigarette smoking and mortality, I started wondering, we all know smoking is bad for you, but what if cigarettes started exploding? I know that sounds like something you would buy at a novelty shop, but what if they really did start exploding? What would we do? I hope we would say, okay, this is a great time to question whether we should make these illegal or not. Or would we build a safer cigarette? So I guess where I'm going with this is BNSF says they want to build 5,000 new, safer rail cars, next generation rail cars. Next generation is probably bad language for them to be using, because the next generation is going to be in dire straits if they build those 5,000 safer rail cars. My daughter said when an oil train explodes, it hurts people who live near the train tracks. But when an oil train doesn't explode, it hurts everyone in the world. And the difference is one makes a big fireball, and the other is invisible and happens every day. If we increase the oil by rail 10 times, 50 times, 100 times what we've seen in the past, we're adding new carbon pollution to our planet. And we're basically force-feeding our kids new, safer cigarettes. I think about the Deepwater Horizon explosion in the Gulf and how we all watched horrified. And I hope that, we know that if that oil had not exploded, it would still be burned, refined and safely burned for years, threatening our planet. So thank you for taking leadership. I can look my kids in the eye and say, we're not racing in the wrong direction. No new carbon pollution. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Again, thank you for staying late for us. I wanted to raise the point, I don't know if this has been said before, that hearing the discussion that those in the industry gave of whether it was appropriate for a city to be regulating trade traffic through it. The only thing I have to say about that is whether a large metropolitan area has an overriding extraordinary interest for its own citizens in just, safeguarding, tens or hundreds of thousands of people from a rail accident. As the people that I've been attending with have said, we, of course, also need to recognize the fact that they've started moving this oil through our city just carte blanche. They just went ahead and did it. And on the larger issue of climate change, I also want to say that we have had my entire lifetime, 30 years, where we've known that this was an issue, or where, we were trying to bring it to public policy and get it solved. And the industry has had 30 years to continue to profit or to make their changes, or to basically have the benefits of the system that they assert that we all need. And we realize that we're running out of time, and we have the imperative and the means to finally begin to make that change. I think the only reason it hasn't is because of impediments that the industry has been throwing up. I think the numbers are beginning to get behind the economics. I think it's safe now to begin to make this transition and to be able to stand up for it. And there's no reason why we can't. So I would just encourage you to be bold, and thank you so much for all that you've done. Thank you for protecting us from this accident.
Great, thank you so much. Anyone else testify today? Great, well, thank you all so much for being here on both the issues that folks commented on today. And we look forward to further discussion in the next couple